Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk podcast. This is the United show. This is Devil's Advocate, and it's the biggest game in English football, biggest rivalry in probably the biggest rivalry in world football alongside El Clasico. Manchester United versus Liverpool in the Premier League. Both teams fighting for top four, both teams fighting for Europe. And looking at today's results, I think tomorrow's game has got so much bigger in terms of the context of things. But I have two very good guests here today. I've obviously Callum, our United fan, and I've Keith, our Liverpool fan. So Callum, obviously regular on here and on the Stretford Paddock, and then Keith from LFC Daytrippers Podcast as well. So two very good men here, and also I'm here to host today as well. So we're going to chat about a lot of things. We're going to chat about race for top four. We're going to chat about obviously Jurgen Klopp situation, Liverpool. We're going to chat about obviously. We might bring in a bit of ownership talk as well on the podcast. So look, do smash like the video, do subscribe, and as always, look, we do appreciate your support. But I'm going to go to you first, Keith. Obviously, look, Liverpool have had a massive version of Jurgen Klopp. A very good 7 years. You've won every trophy possible. Obviously, this season, look, it's probably not been your best season, but still, you're still in the race for Europe. You're still in the Champions League. And obviously, there's been a bit of unrest with regards to ownership talk and stuff like that. But are you fearful of Jurgen Klopp in terms of is he going to get backed enough to rebuild this Liverpool team, or do you think it's going to be a situation where you might need kind of new funds, new ownership to kind of facilitate that? Considering look, Mane's left, and other players like that, the likes of Nunes and that have come in, but it looks like you need the Jude Bellingham and stuff in midfield who's been highly touted for Liverpool. Where do you think we are in terms of your rebuild stage, and do you think will Jurgen Klopp have the patience to kind of go again, I suppose?
Yeah, Liverpool have been going, and Klopp's Liverpool have been going at such a high rate with City for the last few years, where you're looking at 90 plus seasons, multiple 90 plus seasons, and the toll that's taken on the squad last season as well, pushing for a quadruple right up till the last days of the season. Do you know what I mean? I think that mentally sort of took the so much physically and mentally out of players. So I think this year it's not totally surprising that they're having a down year. And I just think there's too many Liverpool fans that are throwing the baby out with the bathwater at the moment. I think there's a lot of insinuating factors on why it's happening. As I said, a long season, the intensity that they were playing at, and all of it just came on top. And I think they're just having a down year this year, which is a shame. With Man City also having a down year, it would have been nice to be able to maintain that form, but it just wasn't to be. But regards to Jurgen Klopp, I think Jurgen Klopp's well aware of the rebuild that has to happen. And in fact, he came out in a press conference the other day and said, he signed on an extension last year, knowing that there was a rebuild needed to be done. And I think he's well aware of what needs to be done. Look, it's going to cost a lot of money. Are FSG the owners that will put that in? I think they will. I don't think they're selling the club. I don't think there's any hope of Liverpool being sold. I think they're looking for an investment to maybe help out with that. But whether that comes or not, I don't think it's going to really play. Like, for example, Jude Bellingham, you're right, he is highly touted to Liverpool. I think he is going to sign for Liverpool. I could be wrong, egg on my face for that. I just think all the talk and chatter and all the the rumours of other clubs are coming and going just as quick as they're showing up. I think there is a lot to the Liverpool links there. But Jude Bellingham's going to cost, 100 million plus? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So Liverpool can't look at a rebuild and say, right, there's 100 million. Right, Jude Bellingham. What else? Do you know what I mean? They're not going to rebuild with spending all that money on one player. So I think there has to be funds made available. They might recoup some money through sales, but they're not going to get anything big, I think Queven Kelleher could bring in a few quid. He will move on in the summer, and I think he could attract relatively big money that'll go towards it. But I don't think it's going to be a case of you'll spend whatever you sell. Do you know what I mean? So I think there will be an outlier of a season with FSG. They done similar in 2017. The main stand was built at Anfield, and then they went and got Salah, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Naby Keita, but that was on a pre-deal for the following year. But he missed out on Virgil van Dijk, got him in the January, But there was a lot of big moves happening then, and I think there'll be something similar this year. I think it's going to be a big rebuild and a refresh needed.
Yeah, like look, I think one of the things is, and like I think we've seen it, Callum, even from our side with United. Like there's been times where we've kept trying to rebuild in the last 10 years. Now, obviously, if you look at our rebuild and probably Liverpool's rebuild at the minute, Liverpool still have a lot of leaders at the football club, whereas our rebuild, we literally had no leaders. Like Rooney went, Carrick went, Vidic, Ferdinand, all them went at once. Whereas I think if you look at Liverpool's rebuild right now, it's probably a case of maybe restructuring their midfield and then maybe maybe getting some extra, obviously bodies at the back as well, because like we've seen when Virgil van Dijk's been injured, how much of a loss he has been for them. Do you think, like, when you look from an outside point of view, when you look at Liverpool's rebuild, do you think it could take maybe a year or two just to kind of, I suppose, revamp the squad, considering in the last 5 or 6 years it's kind of been almost the squad's aged together, in some respects?
Yeah, look, I don't claim to be an expert on Liverpool, nor do I want to be, but so correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, but if it does seem to be the case that there's been a group of players who over the past few years have obviously been fairly successful at Liverpool, but ultimately their age has carried on as well. And now it's hit a point where, we saw it with Ferguson over so many years that he always revitalised the squad. He always brought in fresh players and got rid of players who he thought were no longer going to be good and a good fit for us. And it seems to be the case that Liverpool probably haven't done that as much as they needed to. I mean, I know they signed Núñez, but they probably needed a couple more, especially midfield, maybe even in defence as well, partnering Van Dijk, because Van Dijk's not been great either this year. So, I think there is a little bit of a transition for Liverpool maybe this summer, but the amount of times Man United have had to say it over the past 10 years, I'm sick of the words of it, really. So there's this idea as well that City are having a bad year. I don't think having a bad year. I just think that the past 3-4 years in terms of Liverpool and City and the amount of points that they've accumulated, it looks like a bad year, but they're still fighting for the league. They're still fighting. They're still second. So, it's not as if there's been some big opportunity missed, I don't think. United are half in the mix, I guess, but I don't think we're anywhere really near City or Arsenal at this point. I think there's still a case of both those teams need to split up quite majorly for Man United to catch them. Liverpool's rebuild or transition, so to speak, is just going to be a case of how much their owners are wanting to spend. I think at the minute he's a sixth, and judging on form of Tottenham and Newcastle and yourselves, maybe you are probably slight favourites for fourth. And if you get that fourth spot, I think it'll be a massive push for your transition as well, because Bellingham, I do not think will join you. If there's surely no chance in hell that you'll get the most coveted midfielder across Europe to come and play in the Europa League. I just find it bizarre for that to have happened, especially when the likes of Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Man United, Man City are all in the mix as well. So I surely as a footballing point of view, you wouldn't go to Liverpool just from that, but I could be wrong. That Champions League spot is going to be absolutely vital on how quick your transition takes, though, and how long it's going to take to sort of go back to the top for Liverpool, because as long as it's managed well, and to be fair, over the past few years, Liverpool have had those personnel in, the owners haven't been making the decisions. For example, you've had football people probably in charge. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. I think it was Michael Edwards. We've done fairly well with bringing in the right players who fit Klopp's style. If that is to continue, then I don't think these will be away for long. I think this has been, it's all well and good to laugh and as a United fan, but I can't see it being a period where they're away for long. I think if it happens again next year, there could be signs of trouble for Klopp. I don't think he'd want to stay. I think he'd just think, do you know what, why am I tarnishing my legacy at Liverpool when the owners won't back me or won't help me? At this point, it's, as a United fan, it's just I'm kind of enjoying the sort of results that Liverpool are getting, because over the past 4 years it's been really horrible to watch, to be honest. But at least they didn't have to deal. At least I don't have to deal with 25 years of it like the Scousers did for us.
You must be younger. I remember United going 30-something years.
I'm only 26, so I didn't have to live through that era. But I'm sure I'm going through my down period now. I've had to deal with it for the past decade with the Glazers. So
it's something I always say, Keane. We were only talking about it. Football is cyclical. You know what I mean? And you'll have 30 years of United not winning a league and then going on and winning leagues, and Liverpool going 30 years without winning the leagues and then winning leagues, Champions Leagues, all that sort of thing. Liverpool, Manchester United, the two most important clubs in England. Keane said that at the start, and he's right. They're the biggest clubs, it's one of the biggest rivalries, and it's unusual. They're never, Jamie Carragher, I think, said something like, they're never battling each other when they're both at the top. You know what I mean? It's always one is away the other one is there. So it'll be interesting to see. Look, I think Liverpool, something that Callum said there about Jude Bellingham, I think Jude Bellingham's deal is done. Wherever Jude Bellingham's going, I don't think Europa League will affect that one bit. I can't see any situation where the season ends and Jude Bellingham is deciding where he's going. I think the decision is already made, and whether that's Liverpool, I think it could be Man City. I think Man City are a real threat for Jude Bellingham, but I just don't see a situation where it's going into the last day of the season and, you know, Bellingham's party are then making, you know, a decision on where he's going to go. I think the Europa League or the Champions League, I don't think will be a factor either. If he's sold on the fact that it's not going to be, as Callum said, it's a quick turnaround. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be right, we're making the necessary changes. We're going to be back at it next season. But in saying that, I do think it's important that they get into that top four, because it just makes, if you don't get in, and Manchester United would have seen this, you know, if missing out on the Champions League hurt you. You know, it hurt you financially, it hurt you attractively as well. And well, you might get away with it once. I think you can get into a habit, and I think the way football is going, certainly in the Premier League, there's more than 4 big teams there now, and Newcastle will start coming up on the track as well. You know, that they're this year. I put that down as a bit of a fluke, to be honest. But if they make the right signings, Newcastle are going to be in that mix as well. So you could be looking at like 7 teams going for 4 places. So nothing's ever guaranteed. So I just think 1 year out and Liverpool can probably manage that. And I think, as I keep saying, I think the Bellingham deal is done. And I'm not saying it's done to Liverpool. I think it could be done to Liverpool. But I just think wherever he goes, it'll be already decided. It won't be affected by the form of, or the finishing position of Liverpool. But it's interesting, you know, it goes to show Manchester United for so long, and I'm on about recently so long, where on their knees, you know, and a good manager comes in and a couple of key signings. And I'm going to say a couple of key signings, I'm talking about your midfield, because you have gone from having McTominay and Fred, who are serviceable, you know, jobbers, they're decent players, they're not bad players, and you get Casemiro and Eriksen then, and the jump that's given Manchester United has been huge. Liverpool similarly need to rebuild that midfield, but I don't think it's as pressing maybe as what United had to do with the midfield. And the reason I say that is something I always said about this fixture and these teams. Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool always reminded me of the 2007 Manchester United team, 2007, 2008, when you had Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez up front. They had a strong defence, but the midfield was always made up of, you know, Owen Hargreaves or whoever else was in. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It was always just a midfield, Darren Fletcher. You know what I mean? Like, it was always just good players, but they were just there to facilitate everyone else. And I think that's what Klopp's sort of Liverpool team was like, when you had Henderson in there, you had Wijnaldum, you had Fabinho. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not great players by their own right, you know what I mean? But they were able to just allow others to play and function. So I just think Liverpool need energy in their midfield. Do you know what I mean? But I do think they need 2 or 3.
Wijnaldum has been huge. Do you think you failed to replace him? Because I see a lot of Liverpool fans online, and that they would say that Wijnaldum hasn't been replaced yet.
Do you know what the biggest thing about Wijnaldum? And Wijnaldum was a great player for Liverpool, and he took a lot of stick from opposition fans. What did he do? I'll tell you what, he never missed a game. That's what he done. And his availability was the best ability that he had, because when you look at Liverpool since then, we brought in Thiago, and look, Thiago's absolute silk. Love watching him. But he's never there enough, you know. He's too injury prone or too susceptible to, you know, niggles here and there. And you really only appreciate Wijnaldum when he's gone. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I think Liverpool are finding out to their cost, that the players they have don't have great fitness records, don't have great injury records. And you look at someone like Gini Wijnaldum, who was always there and always available, and they just need to get back to getting players in like that. And when you see some of the players that linked with, some of them make sense and then some of them don't. Do you know what I mean? And it'll be interesting to see what does happen, because I think they're going to need to sign 2 or 3 midfield. I think 3 midfielders in the summer, and I think they need to bring in a centre back as well. And other than that, anything else could be a bonus. Do you know what I mean? Roberto Firmino's announced that he's not renewing his contract. He's going to move on. But I think Cody Gakpo is probably the replacement there. And anyway, so I don't see the need to maybe bring in a high profile forward. At the back, I think Joe Gomez is done. I think Joe Gomez is a huge worry for Liverpool. His injury, I don't know, his pace is he's still quick enough, but his head, his mentality, his decision making is just gone. And Joel Matip as well is starting to creak, whereas he was quite dependable all the time. You're starting to see Matip struggling now. So I do think that's where Liverpool need to invest. 3 midfield players and a centre back that can go in there, not necessarily be a starter, but can supplement Van Dijk and Konate if that's the chosen two. But big work needed. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. I think especially like, look, in regards to the Bellingham deal, you'd like to think with his team that he has around him and that's done, especially such a big transfer like that. I think with us, with Frankie de Jong, that's probably something that's going to happen depending on Barcelona's financial situation similarly, because obviously they're always in the pits at the minute. It looks like we're going back into
news
him
today with them that they're not allowed to sign anyone unless they have to raise 147 million or something. Or they'd get 147 million off that book.
It's just a repetitive story regarding Barcelona. Yeah. It seems to be a thing every single summer. I actually think, and there's obviously talk United going in for him again. I actually think Frankie de Jong would be great for Liverpool.
Yeah,
it'd be great for Man United or Liverpool. But I think that should be one of your first midfielders on your list as well. I think. Yeah. Ultimately, going back to the only comparison I can really make is obviously the longevity of the Fergie teams and how many times he revitalised and rebuilt those teams. And speaking of Joe Gomez and Joe Matip, they're probably the kind of players that would do a job for 3-4 years and then they would be moved on if it was at United. And I think that's kind of because I don't know whether it was just because Liverpool were so successful in terms of winning the amount of getting in any other. Probably in the era of 2014 to 2018, if you'd have done what you'd done between 2018 and 2022 in 2014 to 2018, you'd have probably won the lot. But it was just because City were so good that you didn't. I mean, ultimately, your best ever era that you've had for however long led to one of each trophy, when really it should have been a lot more. And I think the idea that Liverpool have done so well, really. As a Liverpool fan, you should have thought, well, we should still have won more. But because of how good City were, it's kind of stopped us from winning more, which is ultimately, as a Liverpool fan, you'd probably be thinking, oh, what could have been, really? But I think in this summer, in terms of Liverpool, what's going to end up happening is your owners are going to genuinely realise how much is maybe needed. It's kind of the owners' first big test now, because you've tasted that success and Klopp's tasted that success. So you're going to need to go again now. So you're going to need to try and rebuild the team to get back to that height. Whether the owners can do that, it's yet to be seen, because they're obviously looking at new investment, and I believe they're not up for sale at all now, but they're looking for new investment. So I try to avoid the whole situation of commenting on other teams' owners, because it always annoyed me when other teams' fans commented on the Glazers and said how good they were, when in reality it was just pure ignorance, and it just wasn't the case. When it comes to this season, though, it has been quite a shocking drop-off, and I do wonder whether the intensity and tenacity of a typical maybe Jurgen Klopp team has finally come back to bite this Liverpool team slightly. And I think that the sheer energy that it's took for just to keep up with the likes of City and obviously go win the trophies that you did, I think it's finally caught up to some of the players, especially the ageing players. The ageing players did need... not necessarily replacing, but they needed somebody else to come in just to have that rotation with them. I mean, the fact that they haven't got that and they're still continuing to have to play probably 90% of the games, it's probably that tiredness has probably just caught up with them now after the battles that they've had to endure the past few years. So it remains to be seen what happens in the summer, because the thing is, like you were saying then, Keith, about the rebuild, should Bellingham come to you, you need more than Bellingham, realistically. I think you're right. I think that the centre-back issue is a big thing. And let's not forget, Van Dijk is also aging as well. So it's not just a case of bringing someone in next to Van Dijk, that you're going to have to start looking for the future at possibly even replacing him. So I don't actually think Liverpool have the financial capacity at this moment in time. Obviously, it could change with any investment, but I don't think they've got the financial capacity to actually go and sign Bellingham at the moment, because you know, it's all comparable really. But the likes that Enzo Fernandez has just gone for 106 million to Chelsea. Obviously, we can comment about Bowley and Chelsea spending, but the fact that he's gone for that, Dortmund are well within the rights to go, do you know what? If he goes for that, why are we not asking for £150 million for Bellingham? The inflation in transfer fees over the past few years has gone so astronomical that I genuinely don't know if Liverpool can even afford Bellingham. So where does he actually go? Because the idea, I genuinely think you could see him go to Real Madrid, because they're probably, and if United get Qatar, which is a whole other discussion, United could afford him. So I don't think that transfer is anywhere near done. I think you're going to look at Dortmund trying to get a little bit of a bidding more. I think that's quite likely, to be honest. I really don't think that transfer is done at all.
I think with Dortmund, if Dortmund start looking for a bidding war, I think I've seen it with Jadon Sancho and I've seen it with Erling Haaland. They don't tend to, you know, Manchester United, when they were going for Jadon Sancho and missed out on him, they were given a price and they didn't go and match the price. And then they were told, look, he's not for sale until the following summer, end the story. Haaland, there's all sorts of blade and skullduggery going on with that one, but they were selling him. That's it. The thing with Bellingham, I genuinely do think that it's a done deal already now, like I said, whether it's Liverpool or not. I think the thing with people always think about Liverpool's owners is they don't have the money. They have the money if the right player becomes available, and it's something they've already said. They've always said. For example, last summer they tried to sign Aurelien Tchouameni and he ended up going to Real Madrid when Real missed out on Mbappe, and Real had to jump in and bring in Tchouameni. Tchouameni has come out and said he was, you know, approached by Liverpool, and it was one. Now that wasn't a case of
he was linked with United as well. He was really close to United, him, and so was Camavinga. I remember Romano tweet, we were literally on the cusp of signing him, and then Real Madrid came in for the both of them, and ended up going there.
Certainly, the Tchouameni one was Liverpool, and it got gazumped by Real, and that's what happens. Do you know what I mean? Real had money, hole born in that pocket with money because the Mbappe thing fell through and they went and got him. But it was never a case with Liverpool that, all right, we're going to sign Aurelien Tchouameni or we're going to sign Darwin Núñez. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was never one of them. And a lot of fans say, oh, well, they went and spent that money on Núñez. Clubs don't think reactionary like that. Do you know what I mean? We missed out on a midfielder, let's buy a forward. Do you know what I mean? So Núñez was always a target, was always going to be coming in. The money was there to bring in Tchouameni. So I think they have got money to spend, and funnily, they didn't go for another midfielder after that. You know what I mean? They identified Tchouameni, didn't get him, ended up bringing in Arthur Melo on loan at the end of the transfer window. That's a disaster. But I think the finances with Liverpool, they don't like to spend it, but I think they make an exception when they need to make an exception. Luis Diaz comes in last January. Spurs were going to sign him. He was a player they wanted. They went out and they put down, no, it's only 35 million. But I think the money will be there. I'm not overly concerned about that. If it's not there, well, then that's it for FSG. Do you know what I mean? John Henry came out and done an interview and was saying about the club not being for sale and they're looking for investment. If he's coming out and saying that, I think investment must be fairly close. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to talk about that unless there's
I get that, but I think that there's also another thing. Sorry to interrupt, but there's another thing with that as well. He's not going to come out and publicly, and I think it's probably similar to the Glazer situation at the moment, I imagine, in terms of any kind of investment or sale. They're not going to come out and publicly state, yes, we're desperate to sell, we want to sell, the club is up for sale, because all that does is effectively, it screams desperation and effectively probably drives the price down. So they're gonna try and do any kind of PR and release statements that they need to keep the price of Liverpool as high as possible and to get as much investment into Liverpool as possible. So I never really listened to those kind of interviews. I think him saying they're not for sale, probably from a neutral standpoint, and I'm very rarely neutral when it comes to Liverpool, but from a neutral standpoint, it probably doesn't mean anything really. And this is what I mean. I think I do understand your point in terms of clubs aren't reactionary. I know one club that's been very reactionary over the past decade, and that's Man United. So clubs that are badly run and clubs that have seen resources dripped out of it can be very, very reactionary. And I think that was one of Liverpool's biggest sort of highlights over the past few years that they haven't actually been like that. They've probably been patient when it's come to players being available, and they've not rushed and they've not looked for reactionary. The first time I've probably seen Liverpool do that was probably the midfielder situation with Artemelo. He's just come in and just been injured straight away. Effectively, it seemed a bit of a waste. Surely there was somebody better for you to bring in, but in terms of that, I couldn't really think of many others for Liverpool.
A couple of years ago, there was a centre back. There was a centre back issue, and they went and got Ben Davies and Ozan Kabak at the end of a window. And I think that was just down from pressure for bodies. I think Klopp was never really sold on them, and they didn't play that much. Do you know what I mean? And I just think it's
your entire back line was injured, though, wasn't it? You literally, I think
they had Henderson and Fabinho playing.
He's had nobody to play defence. It was almost like your entire defence had just died effectively. So, but the thing is, in terms of that was a strange signing. I get it was late in the window, but I think he was £4 million from Preston. You're telling me Liverpool Football Club couldn't find a centre back better than that? It was really bizarre, that one.
What happened with that one, right? What happened with that? I said this on an air show at the time. Liverpool had a target, and this is the thing with Liverpool. They won't just they don't tend to veer too far from the targets, right? And Jurgen Klopp does this. It's not all the people blame the owners, blame everyone else. Jurgen Klopp's way of doing it as well. Virgil van Dijk, for example, they went out, they bid for him. Southampton got the hump and said, we're not selling him. Every fan was screaming, we need to get someone. Stefan de Vrij at Inter Milan was one they were looking at, and they're like, or Lazio we could have been at the time, get the Vrij. And Klopp didn't want to. He says, no, we're holding firm. Van Dijk is who we want. Ends up getting him, pays an extra premium, gets him in the January, gets him through the door. 2 years ago when the Davis and Kabak come in, I said this at the time, Liverpool's number one target was Ibrahima Konate, but Liverpool were playing Leipzig in the Champions League in the February.
Oh, last 16, yeah.
And they couldn't get him. Do you know what I mean? Like, they couldn't go out and get the player he wanted. And the way Klopp operates, if he can't get the player that he really wants, but he knows he can get him in 6 months, he won't pay big money on a second choice or a third choice. Do you know what I mean? Now, whether that's right or whether that's wrong, time will tell on these things. But it was Konate was who they wanted, and then they ended up getting those two. I think they had higher hopes for Kabak than they did Ben Davies. I think he was just brought in. He could play left back. He was English. They knew they could flip him, and you're paying such a low fee, 3.75, I think it was. Like, you're going to get that back and a bit more. And I think they did eventually when they sold them to Rangers or Sheffield United, was it? Or Rangers? I can't remember. Rangers. I just think that there has to be a bit more risks taken with Liverpool's transfer strategy. I'm not looking for them to be the sort of, scattergun reactionary approach, as you said, Callum. Manchester United done it for years. I don't want that, but I think there is times when the owners could maybe, or Klopp could maybe take a risk and say, right, we wanted, let's say, Tchouameni last summer, right? So we wanted that profile of a player, a midfielder who can play as an 8, who can, get up and down, can cover everywhere else, and is an all-round sort of all-action player. We want that type of player. Surely there was someone else then that they could have went and got. If they can't get him, and they're not getting him because he's going to Real Madrid, and now they need 3 midfielders this year, I don't see why they couldn't have got somebody of that same ilk last summer. Do you know what I mean? So I think sometimes Liverpool are too risk averse rather than taking a risk and pushing one through. But it's huge. It's a huge rebuild, and the names that I'm seeing linked. So the names that are being really linked with Liverpool, and I don't know, it's Jude Bellingham, Mason Mount, and Matheus Nunes of Wolves. They're 3 that are getting huge traction and always have over the last, Nunes since he went to Wolves. Mason Mount over the last month has been constantly linked with Liverpool, but I'm not sure if that's Chelsea looking for a new deal. But then Chelsea have spent so much and bought so many players, I think maybe they will have to release 1 or 2, so I wouldn't be surprised. But they're the 3 names that are getting mentioned. And again, we can go back to the money. I think Liverpool have money. I think there'll be money there to buy players. But you're looking at, I'd say, 35 million for Mason Mount going into the last year of his contract. He's not going to come cheap. you're looking at maybe 35, 40 million. I think Wolves paid 40 or 38 million or something for Matthias Nunes. So they're not going to sell him at a loss. So you're probably looking at 45 million at him. You know, that's the guts of what, 80, 85 million on 2 more. And then you have to throw a defender in there as well. So I just think, you know, when you're looking at these names that are getting mentioned, if we take it and look, it's all fantasy stuff. We don't know who's going to be coming into Liverpool. But if you take it that Bellingham can come in and those 2 other players come in, that's 200 million on 3 midfield players. They still need to get a centre back. You're looking at the guts of 250 million. And then who are you recouping that money by selling? Queeveen Kelleher is going to move on in the summer. He's too good to be a number 2 there at Liverpool. He's not getting enough chances.
Spurs are looking at him as well, aren't they? Because Lloris is
muck. Yeah. So it makes sense that they be looking at him. I think there's a few teams he could go to and play there. So I think they'll get a few quid for him. Fabinho is one I'd seriously look at moving on because he's fallen off a cliff. Now, whether you can get that back, I don't know. You might get money for him. Joe Gomez, I think that Englishness that he has and the pace he has will attract money. But you're not getting 200 million for all this. Do you know what I mean? So there has to be investment coming from somewhere else as well.
I know, but the net spend would come in there, wouldn't it? So obviously, I don't claim to be an expert on FFP, but the more you get recouping your sales in terms of net spend, the better it'll be. So I think there's easily probably 80, 90 million pound worth of players that you could sell around that, and I think it's probably similar with United. So you probably easily could go spend that, but you'd have to be shrewd in who you get rid of and how much you get for it as well. Exactly. And to be fair, Liverpool have, in general, probably been quite good at recouping money for. I mean, you just give Bournemouth a call or Eddie Howe a call, and I'm sure he'll give you £40 million for whoever you want, like you always seem to. Yeah. So, you know, if you act diligently in the market, you should be okay, really, in terms of who you bring in and who you get rid of. I mean, it's been something that United have just famously not been able to do, and I don't know whether that is because it's Manchester United and we haven't had the people who can negotiate that, or we've had people that have negotiated contracts and put them on ridiculous wages, which has led to them not being able to be sold. But Liverpool have famously been quite good at that, I think, and probably similar to Chelsea in the past few years as well. So
Chelsea sell about 100 academy players and make their profit there. That's how they beat FFP.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, this is what I mean. And looking at who Man United could sell this summer and who Liverpool could sell this summer, I think that, do you know what? Just diversing from that a minute. I think the problem with football at the minute is, like you were saying before, the whole top 6 thing is genuinely going to become a top 7 very soon, and the reason that is obviously because of Newcastle's owners. But the thing is, you've got City with state owners, you've got Newcastle with state owners, Man United, however you want to address it, aren't state owners, but it sounds like they probably will be. It seems to be the case now that if you want a challenge for the top trophies in the Premier League, you need to be owned by a country, and that isn't what the Premier League should be. You know, obviously you've got the likes of Arsenal. It looks like Liverpool probably won't have that investment in terms of being bought out by a state. And Tottenham, I don't even know why Tottenham are called in the top 6, to be honest, because they've not won anything for ages. So it's just becoming slightly annoying, really. And I think if I was a fan of any other club apart from Man United, it would genuinely worry me that those at the top of the league, or those who are historically challenging at the top of the league, are only going to get even richer and almost have an unlimited amount of money to spend. You know, we can go on about FFP and how that sort of legislates against it, but we've seen over the past few years that it genuinely doesn't do anything. And the fact that Chelsea have come in straight away and found a loophole to go and spend £600 million in one season, you know, these state owners will do the same thing, and it'll blow the rest of the Premier League out of the water. So, as a United fan, you know, knowing that you can spend all that money, it goes beyond that for me. You know, there's moral issues regarding it. But if I was a fan of the likes of maybe Tottenham or Liverpool, or even like maybe the likes of Leicester, you'd seriously be questioning how the hell are we going to compete in this league, because we haven't got the resources to be able to do so.
Yeah, and that's where, like, look, I think right now with the ownership situations, you look at some of these big clubs like United and Liverpool. Even do we need state ownership? No, we don't, right? Because like if you get decent owners who don't lump £1.5 billion of debt on the club, and we just let our club run off our general revenue, I think we'd be fine. Once you people who run the club properly, it'd be okay. But it's looking increasingly likely that it's going to be Qatar to take us over, and there's going to be a lot of shit that's going to hit the fan when that does happen, and look, we're going to see that happen. But right now, I think, and Keith mentioned it best at the start.
Do you know something, Keane? Can I just interrupt on that?
Yeah.
I don't think shit will hit the fan. I think, and do you know what? I hate to bring it up, but over the past few days or so, I've seen a few stories come out about a certain footballer, and the reaction towards that certain footballer has been, I expected a lot more fans to go, he shouldn't play for us ever again. And there hasn't been. There's been a lot of, oh, well, he was not guilty, blah, 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 you know, bring him back into the side. If people can't have that as a moral issue, they're not going to give a toss about Qatar owning us. So I think there'll be a lot of questions, and I think there'll be a lot of people morally questioning it and morally against it. But I actually think there's a lot more people that maybe me or you realise that they're probably okay with it. There's many people who I constantly seem to see online begging to be state-owned or begging to, they're begging to be owned by this guy from Qatar because it's not state-owned, when in reality, if you look at the logistics and the legislation in Qatar, it effectively is state-owned, and United shouldn't be about that. And I think a lot more people are okay with the whole state ownership idea than we seem to let ourselves on to believe, and it's quite unfortunate, really.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is down to many people just want to see the Glazers go, and I think it comes down to a point of anyone but the Glazers, and I think that's where we have to be very careful, because it's like, be careful what you wish for situation.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. It's with the likes of PSG and City. They are not a blueprint of good ownership. They're not a blueprint of good ownership whatsoever. We've seen, obviously, City just get charged with over 100 offences. I think something's just happened with the PSG owner regarding a charge on some quite horrible offences as well. You know, these are the faces of these clubs, and these clubs are now tied to that no matter what. And it always is going to raise questions. And I think something similar happening at United for the brand and the reputation that the club has. I think it needs to be really careful. Look, I want the Glazers out as much as anybody. Like, I despise them. I do not want them at the club ever. They should never have been allowed near it. What they've done to the club is awful. But sometimes we really do have to be careful what we wish for, because I just think it seems to be the case that because of the city spending all the money they have and rejuvenating the area, people seem to think that they are such a blueprint of how great owners look and how great owners act, and it shouldn't be the case like that, to be honest. And it's quite worrying, I think. There needs to be a lot of sort of due diligence surrounding that takeover, whoever it is. And look, I'm not a fan of Jim Ratcliffe either. I think he sports washes in his own way, you know. So look, from the two public bidders, I don't want either of them, effectively. My love for Man United will never come into question, and I will always criticise and sort of hold to account whoever owns us. So people seem to think that he loves the Glazers. It's not that. It's not the case at all. But I think people need to just be careful what they wish for sometimes.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. And like we've discussed it before. Like, I think we've had countless chats on ownership on this channel in the last 2-3 years at this point. But looks like we're finally seeing an end to a Glazer ownership, and I can't wait to just be on a pod here and we can discuss them being gone. But like we said, we're going into unknown territory, and like with the club with the history and tradition that we do have, I'd hate to see that being tarnished in any way and being dragged through the rug. But that's what could happen. But we're going to move on to a rebuild, because obviously we talked about Liverpool's rebuild, and I kind of want to get an outsider's perspective on Erik ten Hag, because obviously he came into a very difficult situation with the Ronaldo situation, Maguire, and obviously the ownership situation that we've just been talking about for the last 10 minutes. Keep what you make of Erik ten Hag's kind of impact on Man United, and kind of how he's dealt with other situations within the football club.
Yeah, I think Ten Hag's done very well. He's a great coach. He's very highly regarded, at Ajax, at Bayern Munich, even before that. And I just think he's he's the type of coach that has gone in there, I'd say at the right time. Because United have had good coaches that have not worked out, like Jose Mourinho, like Louis van Gaal, for whatever reasons, their own egos, they haven't worked out. Ten Hag's gone in there, he's got rid of the Ronaldo problem. And look, this is a Manchester United channel. I get that. He was a huge problem for Manchester United. He should never have brought him back. He should never have brought him back. I watched him decline at Juventus, and he always got his field and everyone else suffered. You know what I mean? You looked at the players around him, and I felt when he went to United, I felt that their style of play, they had gone under Solskjaer, who, look, he wasn't a great coach, but they'd gone from pressing from the front and putting teams under pressure to bringing in Ronaldo was never going to happen. So he comes in, Ronaldo's not doing it. It's an easy one to move on from, and he's done it very successfully. Harry Maguire, I think he came in, did he? And he publicly said Maguire's his captain. He probably had an opportunity to whip that captaincy off him there, but he chose to stick with him. He chose to stick with him, and he's moved him out of the team, which I think was key as well, because he's not a great player, Harry Maguire. He doesn't have the mentality to play at Manchester United, in my opinion. He's not strong enough. When you're playing for certain teams, they say the jersey can weigh you down, and he went in there and just didn't have the minerals to carry a club like United. So he's come in and made two big calls with those two, and I think they're reaping that. He's not reinventing the wheel. Do you know what I mean? Like he's come in there, he has them training, maybe what some of them didn't expect, some of the training that they have to do, which is always good to hear when professionals are giving out that they're training too hard. It's always a sign that they weren't training hard enough before that. But I think he's just come in and he's used common sense in a lot of the things he's done. He has them playing in a good way. I'm not looking to have a dig at you or anything here. I don't think United are playing great football. Do you know what I mean? I just think that they've got this confidence at the moment that they can beat a team. So, for example, right, I thought Leeds battered just the other day, right? United scored and then ran up the other goals. I don't think they're playing well, but they've got a confidence there. They've got a midfield now that's not easy to walk through. They've got a striker who's in sensational form, and it's all coming good for them. So Ten Hag now has the ability and the opportunity to mould his team the way he wants, and he can let go some of the players that maybe aren't good enough. But it'll be interesting to see next season what happens. You're talking about Qatar, the investment. United always have big money, and I think you just have to spend it right. I don't think Manchester United necessarily need Qatari money to compete. Yeah. If you look at Liverpool over the years, they haven't spent big, but they've spent well. Have Manchester United always spent well? Has Ten Hag spent well? Do you know what I mean? That's something that, as an outsider, I won't say a neutral. I'm not neutral, but as an outsider, you look at it and you look at the money. Let's say for Anthony, a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? Did they need him? I don't know. You look at Lisandro Martinez. I'm a big fan of Lisandro Martinez. I think he's brilliant. But what did they pay? 60 million or something for him to get him out of Ajax as well? It's a lot of money that was spent. Martinez looks like a great signing. Anthony, not so much. Time will tell. He's only young. You know what I mean?
I don't think Anthony will ever justify, let's say, the 90 million that we paid for him, right? Or 100 million, whatever, give or take what it was paid for him. But he was needed for the system in terms of the balance that right-hand side. He was needed there because Jadon Sancho more predominantly playing on the left, and even at that, he was out of fitness, out of form. Obviously, the other player was gone out of the football club due to stuff, obviously, out of that control. And then, look, when you look at other players in the team, Ronaldo was coming out of the side. We did need to sign Anthony. Did Ajax pull our pants down? Yeah, because we could have got him for 50 or 60 earlier on in the summer. And then we were desperate. We lost 2 games. And again, we talk about scattergun approaches. That was literally the epitome of scattergun, by going in and getting him for that price when we could have done it earlier. So, look.
Do you know what, though? Sorry, it really annoys me that, because those first 2 games, if you think about it, genuinely could have ruined our season. And the reason why we lost those is because we didn't have the personnel there. We didn't have Anthony and we didn't have Casemiro. Anthony is clearly, he's not scoring as many goals, but he's clearly showing that he's a vital part of how Ten Hag wants to play with the personnel that we've got at the minute. Casemiro, my God, we've been crying out for that position for God knows how long because of Fred and McTominay. If we'd assigned those two players before the freaking season started, like we were all crying out for, because the transfer window before that was an absolute mess, and we go on about scattergun approaches, if we didn't have utter idiots running this club and owning this club, and we got those players 3-4 weeks before, those two games we dropped 6 points. We are now currently, if I get the table up, we are now currently with 14 points from the top with 2 games in hand. So let's say we win those 2 games in hand. We then go 8 points off the top. We win those first 2 games. Now, with no disrespect to Brighton and Brentford, Man United should be beating both those teams. That's 2 points from the top of the league. The Glazers failing the transfer market has potentially cost us a league title this season. Or it's potentially cost us a position above City this season. It's slow reactionary garbage from the club as usual, which we've seen over the past 10 years. And there's nothing to suggest that's going to stop until the Glazers go. So it's only because of the sheer genius probably of Ten Hag and the fact that there's a lot of confidence. And I disagree. I think we are playing very good football. And I think the football that we're playing has shown that Ten Hag is actually very adaptable, because ultimately, the football that he probably wants to play completely at the minute. I'm not saying he's a typical Ajax manager, because he's by no means that. He's happy to use that big striker and he's happy to adapt in different games. But I think we are playing good, fast attacking football, and I'd be happy to see this continue. But there's no doubt that we are still probably 2, 3, maybe even 4 players away from genuinely hitting the top. You know, in my eyes, I think we're still a striker, maybe 2 midfielders away, personally. I think if we were to sign those 3 positions, 2 midfielders and a striker, if we were to sign 3 players in those ilk, I think we genuinely make a serious title challenge. But we won't do that with the Glazers. We just won't. And it's a shame that, you know, we're obviously, we've won a trophy and we're still in for 3. I don't personally think we're in for the Premier League, but we genuinely could have been in for the Premier League had we not been failed by the owners at the start of the season. It was reactionary because we were so terrible in those first 2 games, because of the toxic atmosphere around the club and the owners, and because we just didn't have the personnel. I think who do we sign before that? Probably Lisandro Martinez, I believe. That was it.
Martinez, Ericsson on a free, and it's Martinez.
And yeah,
like 13 million or something.
Yeah. So before the start of the season, we'd spent 60 million quid. It's not good enough, considering the shit that we had to deal with last season. And the Glazers thought, oh well, let's just say 60 million quid and see how they start the season. Because if we'd have won those 2 games, I don't think we'd have got Casemiro. Absolutely not. We probably wouldn't have spent another penny. If we'd have got lucky and won those 2 games, 1-0, 2-1, something like that, we wouldn't have seen Casemiro at Man United right now, because the Glazers would have gone, well, that'll do. Those people have failed this football club, and it's thankful that they're going, to be honest. And I hope they do go. I just hope that we get the right owners in, of course. But I definitely disagree that we're not playing good football. And I think the fact that we're doing so well at the moment with the team that we've got, I think it's really encouraging, knowing that if we were to get the right players this summer, I genuinely think United could be back. And I've said on the channel before, Man United are back, because all you've got to do is scroll. All you've got to do is scroll on Sky Sports News and TalkSport's Twitter channels to see how much we've irked all those pundits, because they can't stand the fact that Man United have won something again.
The one thing I'd say is Robbie makes a point in the comments that, like, right now, like, we're playing it every 3 days and we're still picking up results. And look, in some games, I can admit, like Keith mentioned Leeds. That Leeds game at home, that first kind of, let's say 40, 45 to maybe 55 minutes in that game, we were terrible. We were really bad. But we managed to pick up a draw there, managed to go to Ellen Road and win. And then beating Newcastle in the final, beating Barcelona, knocking them out of the Europa League. When you actually look at them in the league at the minute, they're flying. You know, like, I think we're picking up results and we're not playing fully the way the manager wants to, but I still think we're playing way better than we were playing last season. But without a shadow of a doubt. But like, when you look at the Rangnick era, that was disgrace. An absolute disgrace.
What do you think of Rangnick? Because it turned out he was right on a lot of things. Do you know what I mean? Just not maybe a manager. You know what I mean? Not a coach.
Yeah,
but he sort of knew what needed to be done.
like when you look at some of the stuff he said, like open heart surgery, that was 100% that was needed. He never should have brought in as a coach, though, because he didn't coach for about 5 or 10 years before that.
Yeah.
Like he, in that consultant role, he would have been perfect. He would have been great in that role, not as a coach, though. And I'm actually glad to some degree he's not there, because he wanted Rashford to go on the free. So in that regard, I'm happy he didn't stay there for that. But yeah, like look, he was right about a lot of things. He did call out the owners, and I always said the fact that anyone who was at the club never really called out the owners. Even Solskjaer, who was a United man, didn't. But like, look, at the end of the day, we're way better now. I still think there's still a lot to be done. I think like a fullback, a right back. I think Wan-Bissaka and Dalot are both doing well this year. But I do think there we need an upgrade. I do think a centre back, we need a backup for Varane, because Varane has been great this season. But like, if he gets a prolonged injury, which he has done in the past for Real Madrid and at United slightly, you're kind of looking at Lindelof, Maguire to go in alongside Martinez. Like, and again, you could throw Luke Shaw on centre back, but you're not playing 2 left-footed centre backs in a Ten Hag system, are you? So, look, it's interesting to see what happens, especially under new ownership. And look, we're on the right track, and we have a trophy this season. We were starving. We went 6 years without one, and so like, look, at the end of the day, we're in the right direction, and it kind of sends us into this, because obviously, like tomorrow, we've been here 51 minutes, haven't talked about tomorrow, but Man United, Callum, haven't won a game at Anfield in about 6 or 7 years. We had the biggest opportunity in lockdown when we were talking about Liverpool had no defence, they had no centre backs, still couldn't do it then. You look at Liverpool this season now, obviously their form has been up and down this season. When you look at Liverpool right now, like, should Man United, when you look at our current form and look at how we're getting over the line in so many games, do you think we can go there with an air of confidence that we haven't had in the last 6 or 7 years, considering where our form's been at in terms of picking up results, but also Liverpool kind of, I suppose, not being themselves?
When it comes to Man United and Liverpool, you have to forget every other game that's happened this season. It really doesn't matter. Both sets of players will be up for it. Obviously, the fans will be up for it at Anfield. Man United being in form and Liverpool not being necessarily as good as form as United literally means nothing. Man United Liverpool at Anfield is an occasion. Man United effectively just need to make sure that they play the game and not the occasion. They need to just stay concentrated. They need to make sure that they don't get rattled or anything by the crowd. They need to just focus on their own game and just try and grind out a result. I mean, even when we were winning league titles, you know, a draw at Anfield was a good result. So ultimately, the form effectively goes out the window completely when it comes to this fixture. It always has done. You know, Man United can talk about when they play City or Leeds or whatever. You still want to win those games, but when it comes to the Liverpool game, you just hope that you hope that you come away with a scrappy win, or you know, or it's a good game and it's a draw or something like that. No matter how bad Liverpool are or how bad United have been, I'm always nervous for this game. So I do hope. Yeah. There's nothing better than beating Liverpool at Anfield. There's no better feeling as a Man United fan for that to happen. But like I say, none of anything else that's happened this season matters. It's literally about tomorrow and tomorrow only. I just hope fans behave themselves and United win.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, look, one thing I'll say is, like, with regards to our form, it's been good, but we've seen City go to Anfield this season when Liverpool were out form, and Liverpool beat them at Anfield. You know, barring mistakes, really, though, in the Champions League, they were battering Madrid when they're 2-0 up, you know? So, like, look, when you go there, you have to keep, like Fergie said it best, you have to keep it tight early. You definitely have to, because any loose touch, the crowd get on top of you. And look, it's one of them games where I hope, like, the experienced players like your Varanes, your Casemiros, you know, your Lisandro Martinez, players like that can help settle us down.
That's what I mean. Over the past 6-7 years, we've not had those kind of players. So they have let the occasion get to them, and they've not won. Like, that's why we've not won, I think, since 2016, I think it is. You know, our last goal at Anfield was Lingard in Mourinho's last game. Like, if I read that right before. But yeah, so this is what I mean. But the likes of having Varane, Casemiro, who've played on those occasions for Real Madrid and for the countries, I don't think the Anfield crowd will get to those. And I think those kind of players will keep it tight for Man United. And hopefully we'll see a big difference tomorrow. But that'll be the huge difference between tomorrow's game and the games of the last 6 years at Anfield.
Yeah, the experience could tell, but also Liverpool do have experience in their side as well. And United fans showing the love to Keith as well. Says Keith seems like a Liverpool fan that's an honest football fan. I really appreciate that kind of thing. Yeah, look, it's no, like we said before, it's no tribalism here. Like, Joe, we're here to have an honest.
Wait till you see me combine team, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that because I brought it up on the banners. Combined 11's coming up, which was what Keith's had to bring me into that, so we may not wait any longer. Now, so I asked both lads to pick combined 11's for this, and I said to both of them, you can go off this season or you can go off in general. So this is going to be interesting. Now, what I haven't told them is I'm going to bring up both of their combined 11's, but then I'm going to try to get them to agree to each other and pick one. We're going to try to do that. And obviously, like, look, if there's anything we can't agree on, we'll put a poll on Twitter and for a certain position in the combined 11, and we can throw it up there. But on that note, I'm going to bring up Callum's one first. Let's get the overlay here. Yeah, so Callum has Alisson Becker in goal. Now, Callum, you done this on current form, was it?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, the Thiago one, I know he's been injured, but I think he's just such a good player. The rest of the team is probably on. The rest of the team's probably on this season, yeah.
Yeah, so he has Armand Bazaka at right back, and then Varane, Martinez, Shaw, and then his midfield three is Casemiro, Fernandes, and Thiago. Then a front three of Mo Salah, Rashford, and Weghorst. Which when I read that, I'm not gonna lie,
Wild.
He wasn't. That's all I'll say.
The only reason why I've gone Weghorst, honestly, is because if Núñez was scoring as many goals as he should have been, he should have. Liverpool should be a lot further up the league. So
that's very
extremely tongue in cheek. Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally the only reason why I've gone Weghorst, because I think he's been so pivotal for United since he came in. Because realistically, Núñez has missed quite a few chances, and I genuinely think he will be a good player for us. But this season, I think he's maybe hindered you, and I think it's shown that Mane going was a little bit more of probably a hindrance than a help, if I'm honest. I was really surprised Mane wanted to go, to be honest. But yeah, I've only gone Weghorst just because of recent form, and I love him. Because Thiago, effectively on form, he's been injured, so really, technically, he shouldn't be there.
Anytime he's been in that Liverpool side, though, you can see the difference he brings and his ability to control the tempo of the football.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you really wanted to go off form, you could have put how do you say his name? Yeah, that's the one. I can't say his name. You could have put him in there. I think in terms of the defence for Liverpool has not been good at all, really, this season. Alisson is just probably the best keeper in the world, if I'm honest. He's brilliant. I've seen a few things on Twitter of criticising him because of his mistakes. The thing, he has literally taken Liverpool from... He's been your most important player the last few years, Alisson, yeah. I think. He's literally been the difference between you finishing 3rd, 4th, 5th to winning the league. So, yeah, I'm sticking by that. You can argue Weghorst.
Crazy. I'll argue with that one. Don't worry. I'll be arguing that. How many goals has he got this season? And it's not a dig. That's a genuine. Like I don't want to go looking her up.
It's the genuine reason why I actually put him there was because the way Salah has always scored goals is because Firmino's been there. Firmino doesn't tend to chip in with that many goals, and it's probably been similar for Rashford this year. Rashford scored quite a few recently when Weghorst has been on the pitch, and I think it's because of the space that the likes of Firmino and probably Weghorst have created for those wide players to get them forward, to get them to score. So to bring out the best of the wingers, I don't. You could have possibly put Firmino there last season or the season before, but I think speaking as the United fan, I think watching Weghorst, what he's been able to do for the wide players and what he's been able to do for Rashford recently is why I put him there.
Yeah. No, it's funny because Weghorst was actually linked with Liverpool a couple of years ago, and based on the fact that his similarities to Firmino statistically, where Euge, he presses, he does a lot, and even though he's 6'5" or something, he's a big unit. he's an interesting player. Certainly, he wouldn't be near my team. But from looking at that team, I'll wait till Keane comes back there, and we'll put that. There's not too many dissimilarities. There's a few glaring ones, all right, but
that's what I mean. There are footballing reasons as to why certain players are there. The Liverpool players I have put in are just obvious. I mean, you can't not have Salah in. Alisson, you can't not have in. On another year, I'd have put Van Dijk in there. But I think United's defensive Martinez and Varane this year has been just genuinely really good. Robertson's been nowhere near as good as usual, which is why I put Shaw in.
Yeah, it's funny.
I know, but I don't think it's because he's been bad. I just think it's because Liverpool in general haven't been as good as the past few years,
and that's very fair.
That'll be why it's not a dig on him or anything. He's not been bad by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact that United are above you, surely there's a reason why the United players are in there over the Liverpool ones. If Liverpool were doing better, you'd have put Robertson over Shaw. I genuinely, as a defender, I don't think Trent is as good as a defender at all as Wan-Bissaka, but he's obviously very good going forward, but he's made quite a few defensive errors this year, although I will sort of back Trent up. There's been a video going around about how terrible Trent's defending has been recently. It seems to be the case that Liverpool practice a lot of zonal marking, so it wouldn't have been. There was, I think it was at the Real Madrid game where he lost his man.
Yeah.
He didn't lose his man. It was good. He didn't lose his man. It was zonal marking. It was somebody else's fault to not pick him up in that zone. But yeah, I don't think there's too many issues with that team in terms of this season.
Yeah. No, that's fair. You're taking it on this season. I'm certainly not taking it on this season with my team. So I've went for totally Liverpool defence. You went for total Manchester United defence. And for the reasons, I think Van Dijk is certainly not at his best. I'm not coming on the United channel and putting 8 Manchester United players in my combined team. I've put in 3 and you had 3 Liverpool. So it's quite interesting the way we're looking at this. So yeah, Alisson, I agree. What makes Alisson a great keeper is he can make a mistake and it doesn't affect him. We've seen players, and look, I'll go back years ago when Jerzy Dudek let one go through his legs from Diego Forlan, and he just went to shite after that. You know what I mean? So it can happen. The keeper needs to have that mentality to be able to make a mistake and come back from it. Alisson is excellent. I've gone with the Liverpool defence because this season they've not been at their best at all. I think they've been put under too much pressure by the midfield not being able to function. But I think Van Dijk certainly isn't at his prime level. I was excusing him, thinking he's saving himself for the World Cup because he missed out on the Euros, but he hasn't been great since he came back from that either. So the way I look at it is I wouldn't swap him for any of the Manchester United defenders, so he gets in my team.
I tell you, just to interrupt you quickly, it shows what I know. I've just actually looked at the league. Man United and Liverpool, they've actually conceded the same amount of goals in the league this season. So
yeah, and they've scored similar as well, haven't they?
United have scored 1 more.
Yeah, so it's quite similar. Do you know what I mean? But it's amazing how
It's amazing how the league table shows you, in terms of the positions, it shows you how it can effectively look, really. I mean, I would have never said Liverpool had conceded the same as United this season. I think those games where we conceded a big amount of goals has obviously caught us.
Yeah, I think it's a strange one because I think the stats there show you obviously that they concede a similar amount of goals, and you look at obviously the impact, let's say, the Casemiro has made to the Varane and Martinez partnership, and similarly maybe Liverpool aren't conceding look, United's goals they conceded this season, most of it's come from the start, when the 4-0 to Brentford, the 6 at City, so a lot of our goals were conceded early on this season. But on that, what we will do with this combined 11 is I've put it forward to Callum and Keith, that I'm going to add them to a group chat after this, and I'm going to post it up on Twitter, and we will get both our combined 11s on this. But yeah, this was Keith's one. This is Keith's one. Sorry. We had Alisson, Trent, Van Dijk, Konate, Robertson. The midfield three of Casemiro, Eriksen, Thiago, and then Rashford, Núñez, Salah. This is close enough to the one I had, where I actually had, I had the United defence, but I had Wan-Bissaka or Alexander-Arnold as the right back. I couldn't choose, but I had I had Bruno Fernandes in Eriksen's space, and I had the same front three. That's who I had on my one. But on that note, talk combined 11s. We've talked ownership situations. We've talked rebuilds. There's one thing we haven't done though, and that's predict the match. Because obviously both teams are, in a rich vein of form in terms of lately, because Liverpool are starting to pick up results, clean sheets. United have obviously Keats on the Guinness early.
I know the choices wouldn't go down well.
United obviously have picked up results, but obviously they've played a lot of games, so I think there's a lot of weighing up options. First of all, I'm going to come to the opposition first. Keith, how do you think this game is going down? And also, give us your score prediction.
I disagree with you. Liverpool have been picking up results, but their performances haven't been great. Do you know what I mean? And while I said United haven't been playing very well, it wasn't a dig. It was meant in a sort of they're getting the results and they're doing it. I think United will win this game. I think United will win this game tomorrow. Unless
it's such
Liverpool.
A contrast to the other game, isn't it?
Which one?
The one at the start of the season when we all thought you were going to batter us.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Liverpool, I wasn't too keen on that one either, and that was one that I think Trent really got exposed because he was doing a lot of standing around watching as runners were going off him. I think he had an awful game that night, but I just think I think United are playing much better than Liverpool are. Liverpool are getting the results over the last 3 games in the league. They got battered by Real Madrid. But even the Real Madrid thing, Madrid were just absolutely clinical. I think he had 6 shots and scored 5 of them. So, Liverpool have to be big and have to perform. Against Man City, they were excellent recently. Haaland didn't get a sniff. Gomez actually had a great game. And Van Dijk, the 2 of them roll back the years, but there hasn't been enough of that this season by Liverpool. There hasn't been enough good performances. Talking about the goal difference, we got 9 against Bournemouth. It was just, you know what I mean? There was flaws in 9-0, do you know what I mean? And it's right, there's a few issues going on at Liverpool. Do I think United will get payback and batter us similar to what we done last year at Old Trafford? I think there's a possibility. That we could get battered by United because the strengths that I see in Manchester United will prey on the weaknesses of Liverpool. The weaknesses of Liverpool, I put the back forward in the combined team, but that's not for this current iteration. You know what I mean? That's a historical thing. I think Rashford on Trent is going to be very interesting. Trent's not as bad a defender as he gets made out to be, but he's certainly not an elite defender. Do you know what I mean? He can be good when he's focused, and I think unless Liverpool are really, really focused on this, and something Callum said is the crowd won't affect the big players at Manchester. No, I think it can, and I think it should. If it doesn't, I think that's shame on the Liverpool fans, because you go into a Liverpool United game, you have to make it as hostile as you want. Obviously, not overstepping a mark or that, but just a hostile atmosphere. And some of the best players in the world have said they've been rattled by the Anfield atmosphere, and I think if the fans can do that, and I think if Liverpool can stay tight for the start of the game, they can get something out of it. But I just fear that at the moment Liverpool don't have a steady enough foundation in the defence to hold out United. And one thing I want to come back on as well, right, for the combined teams was we were talking about Weghorst and Núñez. Liverpool fans absolutely love Darwin Núñez and think he's the only spark that Liverpool have is Darwin Núñez. Yeah. It's not Mo Salah. Mo Salah is way off at the moment. Núñez is actually the one when he's not playing that Liverpool fans are like, oh, we need Núñez. So it's interesting when you're looking at a team all the time, you see something. When you're looking at it from the other side, obviously there's a rivalry there, but it's crazy. We see Núñez as absolutely vital. And I think if Liverpool are to stand a chance tomorrow, I think Núñez is going to be a key player in that. You touched on Wan-Bissaka. He'll play right back. I think Núñez will play off the left. And Wan-Bissaka, I think, is an awful attacking fullback, but he's an excellent defender. And, you know, I think Núñez will run at him. And if he can't get the better of Wan-Bissaka, I don't think Liverpool can get the points or the goals that they'll need. So it'll be interesting. It can go either way, but I do have a feeling United could win this comfortably.
And on that, Keith, if you had a score prediction tomorrow, what would it be?
Liverpool 3, United 1.
3-1 for Keith. And Callum, do you have a score prediction?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a typical Anfield game, dead scrappy, and 1-0 United.
I'm going to go 2-1. I do see us conceding, and it's probably going to be from a set piece. I see Van Dijk or someone like that pick one up. But for me, I'm going to go Rashford on our side, and just for banter, I'm going to go Martinez winner. Just because Jamie Carragher said he's too short. Just for that, it'd be comical. But on that, we will.
Jamie Carragher, he's too short. Carragher was only 6'1" or something. Like Martinez is an excellent defender. There was in the chat there people saying, "Oh, I must be mad having Konate over Varane." Varane didn't even come into the equation for me. It was Martinez was the one. I'm like, I'd have to get Lisandro Martinez in there, and I just. My heart overruled it, but I just think he's excellent. I think he's brilliant as centre back for Manchester United. I think it's a great sign. And even though you paid big money for him, who cares what you pay for them if they work out? Do you know what I mean? It's only if they flop that you give a show.
Yeah, exactly. We look at the other ones we did big money for in the past and they didn't work, but he's working now and we're reaping the rewards. But on that, we will wrap up there for tonight. Thanks very much to Keith and Callum for both coming on this evening. Do check out LFC Daytrippers as well. They do have their own podcast, and they obviously will have their own preview of this. You want to go over and check that out, and also check out Callum's blog on the United Road as well. Do check that out. I dare to say he'd probably do a piece or two on the game as well. But on that note, thanks very much for everyone for watching. Get liking, get subscribing, and we'll see you tomorrow for the match reaction.